Knew we'd ever get this far, man.
I was thinking about it before we jumped on, and that means we've been doing this for a straight month.
Oh
It's
my
been four
gosh.
weeks of podcasts. We've been doing this religiously for a month. It's
That's
insane to me.
that's awesome, man. That's pretty cool. Yeah, and so much is happening and changing, and it's just crazy right now. We'll get into all the speculation. We'll get going. We'll answer questions in chat. We'll try to answer questions that other people have had just throughout the week. And yeah, we'll try to hit all the speculation. AK, good to see you, man. Thanks for joining us right away. And yeah, we'll get right into it. So, one of the things that we have to know right off the bat here is oh man, it's actually not Stack September, it's Sad September.
It is sad September. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this a little bit before. I'm not sure if we're pressuring Jiho a little bit to get the news out that things aren't happening or what. But we're here every Monday talking about what we're expecting to happen, and at some point they got to tamper us back. So, um, who knows? Maybe they were pushing to get something out by the end of the month, and it's not just quite there yet. Um, but at the very least, they're keeping us in the loop, which I'm happy to see.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think that I doubt it's us, but yeah, I maybe it's good. It's good that we're talking about all this stuff, and hopefully we can get some of the team on to talk more about it too. I do know that they care a great deal about having a good product when they release anything, and so I can just see them just feeling like they want to make sure that any big release would hit just right, especially with all the markets going really well inside of Axie right now.
Right.
SLP is going high right now. Lots of stuff happening that would I think encourage them to make sure that when they do the launch of whatever they have, that it's hits just right and does really really well.
Yeah, all I could think about was, okay, so we're pushing back the release for a month. That gives us more time to keep stacking. So this isn't stack September, it's keep on stacking September.
Yeah, I like it.
Get what you want before the floods arrive. Because I mean, we even saw in the last couple of days, there were, I wouldn't say it was marketing, but we've had some good news come out. Jiho's been on a interview, podcasts, whatever, which has just brought more people in. NFTs are kind of popping, which is bringing more people in. So yeah, the floor is moving, and there's not going to be a whole lot of time left to pick up stuff that you want to pick up if
Yeah.
if they start dropping releases.
Well, yeah, and I mean, people have been asking in Discord kind of those questions like, should I be picking up land on the secondary market? Should I be waiting for
Yes,
chests? And it's crazy to me because we've been in it for a minute. You've been in it a lot longer than I have been. I came in the scene about March of this year, and I just really really dug in and tried to figure out everything I could figure out. You've been in it since
yep.
January 2019, right? Is that what you're telling me?
I mean, yeah, I think I had picked up some Axies from some bundle on OpenSea. I didn't even know what they were, and kind of just assumed it was a stupid CryptoKitties clone. Um, so when I actually stumbled upon this, when land the bundles were released, I was like, why do I already have some of this? But yeah,
That's
I've
awesome.
been around for a while. I lurked for a long time, and it took me a while to start contributing and being active. But
Right.
um, yeah, here we are. And I was thinking the other day too, when everybody was starting to talk about the item floor moving. Um, our first conversation, you had hit me up asking what I thought were good investments in the item space, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's awesome. So and hey, Lazarin and Big Crit Brit, good to see you guys. Indus, thanks for joining us. Please, let us know what's going on in the chat. If you have questions or anything, if there's anything you want us to specifically talk about, we'd be happy to. But yeah, seeing the floors move, we've got a lot of stuff to cover. So let's get right into the news in the Axie space since we don't have any direct release information. Let's talk about what some of the things are that we've seen happening. You
Yeah.
you popped this one up. I love this, which means you probably watched Potato Wars, huh?
Yeah, you mentioned it in the last podcast. I had to figure out what the heck you were talking about. If you guys haven't seen Potato Wars, I don't even know what to call it. It's a pretty good
Technoblade.
overview of a yeah, it's a pretty good overview of a battle in Minecraft between some pretty big streamers. But again, Baronar had mentioned that in our last stream. I went and watched it because I was bored over the weekend and was like, what is he talking about? And this slide popped up in the middle of this thing, and it reminded me of Axie. I'm like, this is his playbook. Sun Tzu, The Art of War, let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt.
Heck
They
yeah.
they don't let anything through unless it's ready to drop and surprise everybody. So yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know. I just thought it was cool and timely.
definitely. Yeah, I try to wait for the bot to be down, and then I do all my acquiring as much as I can. Unfortunately, the bot's not down very much, so, there's only so much I can do. Alrighty, just kidding around. Here we go. All right. So, look at this, man.
I'm still waiting. Oh, there we are. Yeah, man. Growth. And this came up what today because a couple people came into the Discord. They were looking for some news about is X even worth looking into compared to some of the other games in the space, I guess. Um, and this, uh, who brought this out?
I think it was Jiho in his Twitter. At least I saw him tweet it. I don't know if it was him originally or not, but I know I pulled this off of. I think it was something you compiled, but I definitely saw it on Jiho's Twitter.
Okay, yeah, I think that's right. But anyways, 2,000 active users versus not even 1,000. Next runner-up, Sandbox has been getting a lot of play lately. What is that? It's a little small on my screen. Is that 6,000 or 650? Like, we are, and I said it the last time around too. We are far and away ahead. Man, I cannot talk tonight.
You're good.
We are way ahead of everybody else in this space.
Yeah. So this next slide, let's see, this next slide. So this actually talks about weekly average users and total new
Yep.
installs that we just barely had relatively recently. So we're talking about a lot of people in the Axie space on a regular basis um, being involved and playing the game and earning that SLP.
I
Um,
mean, what this is showing you is 909 new installs of the game this week. We see maybe 300 people trickle into the Discord in a week, but it's three times higher than actually installing and playing the game. And I caught a little tidbit of new information for me at least. I think it was 40% of people installing and playing the game have never touched crypto before. They never had an active wallet prior to playing Axie Infinity, which is
that's amazing.
really cool and really interesting because one, it tells you that this game is for everybody. It's speaking to people on a lot of different levels. But two, it's kind of cool because it's bringing people into crypto, and we saw that with Uni this last week. How many people were surprised at this giant windfall of money that was airdropped to them?
Right, right.
Who were just using it because they were swapping SLP for ETH.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, the uni, and we'll get to the uni slide. We will get to that right now. we're always
Sweet.
in sync, man. So
Right?
pretty much, this slide says it all for I think a lot of things. Like you look at the SLP price increase, you look at land items, you look at land floor getting snatched up, and a lot of this is because a sudden level of liquidity that the average user for Axie Infinity didn't have access to
Right.
prior to this uni drop suddenly hits. And what do? Man, they put it back to
Buying
the
land.
thing they love. Yeah, they put it back into
Yep.
this game that they love. And Axies have been flying off the shelf too. So, it's not just land and land items. People are buying lots of Axies, and we've seen Mystic Axies move even. Uh, really low ID Axies have been
You
snatched.
you see that one? I think it was number 16 today, sold for 5 ETH.
Crazy,
Not a
huh?
mystic, not anything in special in particular. Not a great battler necessarily, but 5 ETH just because it's low and rare.
Incredible, and I love it. I mean, I love that concept. I love what's happening here. I think that the Uniswap is incredible. I saw Jiho kind of like pitching for a MetaMask token, and I think we'd all be in favor of a MetaMask token, right?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised seeing, seeing the success at this and how much, they dropped that airdrop and they changed the space. Everybody
Yeah,
was talking about it. The whole NFT art space, every single new piece coming out was about um, Uniswap. So I don't know. You got to imagine that a lot of these other players in the game are looking at what they did and trying to figure out how they can get that kind of attention because they've got a low, daily active user or whatever. Um, so yeah, I think that's realistic. We'll see.
yeah, man. I think it's incredible. Um, So a question in the chat was, "Hey, speaking of land, baronar, this is Indus. Which areas are you looking to scoop next?" Um, Unfortunately, two of the three I have acquired in snow grandpa infested zones. Hey, I promise I'm going to be a good neighbor, Indus. Like, I think that that's going to be hugely important, to be honest. I really do. I think that being good neighbors, being basically willing to partner up with your adjacent folks is going to be a big part of this. I don't know. I have no clue how that's going to be handled and how that might look or work out. But I do feel like it's going to be done well. It might not happen very quickly, but it's also something I think that the team has thought about at great length about how they're going to implement that. And we won't see it in the alpha, I don't think. Or if we do, it'll be a really scaled back version of sharing spaces and sharing buildings and that type of stuff. But I know that
Well,
that's something that they've talked about from the very beginning, right? Enjoy.
yeah, they've said that they don't want this necessarily to be a competitive game. I mean, obviously in battles and stuff, there's competition, but they don't want people to be, you know, fighting for resources. They want people to work together. They want to build this community around, this game. People helping each other, forming guilds, working together to accomplish things. So, um, yeah, I don't know how to answer that question in this, but yeah, I guess you've got a good
We can
neighbor there.
talk more about land in a minute, though. I know that we had a couple questions about land, and we can give our thoughts, but of course, everything on that front is just pure speculation, right? I mean, we have no idea. You and I we're just trying to figure things out. Like, I do have some thoughts, and I've had them for a long time, and some of them I'll share, and some of them, if you're next to me, maybe we'll talk more, and we'll try to figure that out and see what's there. But again, like a lot of my analysis still comes back to like I look at SLP, right, and I look at what you can earn in order to breed in SLP. And so I think, like, what is it going to take in order to get enough resources in order to build that marketplace that allows for trading and exchanging of goods? And, are we going to need marketplaces that are relatively close in distance terms so that more people can access the market in order to trade their stone for Luna or shells or whatever? I mean, this stuff gets really exciting to me. So I got to be careful because I'll just keep talking and talking about that type of stuff all night long.
It's interesting because it's macroeconomics in a micro world, right? It's
100%.
it's like this small scope, but there's so many different things that play into it.
Yeah, and so I just don't think anybody's going to be disappointed, especially at this early phase if they acquire land or land items. Of course, NFA, DYOR, all that same stuff that we always say. Like, but on the other hand, like Uni, we didn't even know that this token was coming, right? So Uniswap, just using Uniswap ended up creating a token that had value, right? So,
I can't wait to see what happens with Luna.
I, yeah, exactly right. Like, here we are. Yeah, we'll talk more about that. So hey, check this out. Like, to me, this is awesome. This was quite the move, right?
Yeah.
And I freaking love it. It also kind of illustrates kind of the good and the bad of NFT EX in my view. Like I guess I have point oh 0.01
Had
ETH
had.
somewhere, right?
Oh.
Had. Well, I mean, I had it in the sharded one, but now I guess I have it somewhere.
Yeah, I think you still have to claim it. So for people who, don't hang out in Discord 24/7 like I do, Weistrosity, who's a pretty popular community member, picked up this sharded Axie. Um, Me and Baronar were talking, what was it, 2 months ago when all this started happening, when people started charting their Axies, maybe 1 month ago. I don't know. Things move fast in
It's
this space.
amazing.
But we're like, these things are never going to be used again. Nobody's ever going to sell all of the things. People are going to take, these shards off chain. They're going to lose their wallet addresses. Like they're just going to fall into a black hole and never be used again. What's the point? And Weistrosity saw this gap where kind of the hype around sharding fell off, and looked at this one because it was the price made sense, and he
Oh
actually
yeah,
picked it up for 1 ETH, which is way less than the market
incredible.
value for it. I think the starry balloons actually go for closer to 3 ETH typically. So he got a hell of a deal. And more importantly, it just shows us that these sharded Axies, one, it's a good opportunity for people who are keeping their eyes peeled. But two, they very well may pop back up, which is exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting, and um, you know, the thing I love about this is it shows a path of taking an asset that's been sharded and bringing it back to life. Um, I do think that the shards are an awesome idea and an awesome opportunity. I just don't like the lack of utility once they're sharded. That's been my
Right.
big
Same.
concern. Yeah. So if they could still have utility and somehow have that utility spread out amongst the owners of the shards, I'd be totally more excited about it. And I think we kind of see that play out right here. So what happens is it's hard for people to be super excited about this, single mystic, even though it's awesome. I mean, it's an awesome starry balloon, um, but it's hard for them to. They got their free drop from doing it, and then they just kind of stopped paying attention. So good on Weiss, man, for snagging
Well,
this
I
puppy.
think it's the case of you can't pay attention to a million different things, and once we had 8, 10 axes sharded, people were watching specific markets, and the Imagogenesis, did I say that right?
Yeah,
Agamogenesis, that sounds better. Ones took a lot of everybody's attention. And then the whole issue with Niftex happened, and again, it kind of fell off the radar for a little bit. So he acted when all that came back up, and um, again, man's a legend, and more importantly, he proved something that I didn't think could be done.
yeah, absolutely. I thought these things were stuck, so I love it. And again, like I saw in chat someone talking about how you shard it at this certain price point, and then what do you come back and you buy it at a lower price point. That feels a little weird too. So I don't know. I'm totally good with people making money. I'm totally good with market economics. I'm totally good with how all that stuff goes. But again, we are a community, and it is nice to um, do our best to see everyone have success, right?
Yeah.
As much as we reasonably can. Okay, so art scene still happening. Um, I wanted to point a couple of these out. The first one here, Switch and Hound. Again, like if you haven't bought one of these, one thing I just pitch on his behalf, like Switch and Hound has done a lot for the community. So and here we see AK talking about Owl buying back Vamp at the sharding price. Yeah, that's totally awesome. Like I'm totally good with that type of stuff. So okay, so back to Switch and Hound though. Like if you wanted to support Axie Zone, like I know a guy who's on this chat too who has done a lot for the Axie community, and he's got a comic series going. Like I'm planning on picking up some comics when that happens too. because if nothing else, it's to support the people who have put a lot of energy and effort into it. I love Starboy, by the way. I think that's gorgeous. I think that's super cool. But what a cool way! Like, I I was not jumping right onto that. Yeah, thanks, AK. I am late. I was just gonna say exactly what AK said. I was slow to the Rarible party. Like it was still hard, and it's still kind of hard to me because I'm so singularly focused on Axie, and that's just the truth. Like it's hard for me um, to to get outside of that just because again my singular focus. But seeing some of these guys who have done a lot for the community, Switch and Hoon, Axie Zone, amazing. Like this was a no brainer. The next one day play with his promotion. And AK's promotion was awesome too. We talked about that before though, but this promotion I just thought was so cool and such a no brainer for people to be involved with. Each one of these bloomin' leaks that you picked up turned into a draw on an Axie that he had an Axie pull for. And man, I don't know. I guess he's kind of a developer too, because the system that Chief used for that was slick as spit.
Yeah, that's all one day play. I've talked with him a few times. That's I think that's actually his career of choice. But man, yeah, the execution on everything he puts out is amazing.
Incredible. Yeah. And then we have another just four katana. I think is what it was.
Yep.
Just wanted to point that one out to you. I just think that's beautiful. It's so cool. So keep on keeping on. And hey, update. I did get some rarity for some of my purchases, so I'm happier with with
Nice.
Rarible. Okay, well, I took this not that long ago. I don't know what it is right now, but what do you think about this, man?
Small love potion, 5 cents. I think it's great. I sold at 4.5, so I'm happy to see it hasn't skyrocketed since. But no, I mean we keep talking about the play to pay. Oh my God, what is the phrasing that they keep
Play to
using?
earn.
Play to earn. That's the one. We
Yeah,
keep talking about play to earn, and these people who are making their living playing Axie, and you know SLP rising again. Who knows if they've been saving it this whole time and waiting for it to rise up, but just a great opportunity for people to make a little bit of cash again. I know I made enough to pick up another piece of land, so I was happy with that.
yeah. So I think it's wonderful. I think that there's been various different comments about Small Love Potion, and we've talked about it quite a bit. And I'm kind of like scratching my head, right? So, it's a fascinating proposition, Small Love Potion. Like when it first started pumping, I just thought this is dumb, this is weird, I don't get it. Why are people pumping this potion, this token, the way they are? I've kind of come around. Like, I'm not saying that it needs to go like Chaz was saying to 78 cents or whatever it was that he was saying, but this is a real utility. Like this token, it's more than a lot of the other tokens out there. I'm thinking food tokens, like those are just about like trying to capitalize on other gains, other interest, other stuff. This is actually a real thing with a real function, and it
Yeah.
should have real value. Now I know it's going to be tied to Axie floor, or Axie in general, breeding Axie, but I guess I'm saying like I've kind of turned around on Small Love Potion. Like I I'm not saying it's something to hodl or anything, but the second thing, it gets burnt, it goes away. Like
Right.
so,
I mean, and here's the thing: is we know that there's 10, 20, 30 new tokens coming for everything else in the game. If you've turned around on this, like the whole economy is just gonna blossom. I think it's gonna turn into way more than we all think.
well, and it makes me wonder about Sad September too. Like you see another pump in Small Love Potions, the same time they're saying, uh, maybe we better hold off. I don't know. I mean, I don't
You
know.
know, yeah, and I'll step back too. Not to promote myself or anything like that,
Yeah,
but
you
the
should.
the comic that you had mentioned, I'm trying to treat it more like I'm trying to treat it with traditional token economics. and make it so that there's maybe some burns involved. There's a curve for price at the beginning to make it so that people who buy in early, they immediately get some sort of return on value.
Well, I liked your
Um,
shiny idea too. I think that's so cool.
Thanks, man. But my point in saying this is, the 20 different ideas that I've had to try and bring value to the people who support me, um, they all kind of butt heads, and maybe some that I really loved initially don't make sense after a while. And with all these different pieces that the Axie team's trying to put together, I can't even imagine like what their brains are doing, because it all needs tweaking. And once it goes into play, once they actually have a demoable version of land gameplay, they need to play internally with it for quite a while to figure out whether or not those tokenomics make sense.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
mean,
it's not just developing the platform. It's trying to make sure that the whole economy works.
like, so we know nothing about New Luna, right? But one thing I wonder is if Small Love Potion rises in value significantly to the point where it significantly competes with New Luna in value. What effect does that have, right? I mean, I don't, I'm totally completely guessing on all this sort of stuff, but it's an interesting proposition. The existing utility token, all these new tokens that we're talking about. We know there's governance token. It's an interesting proposition to see how all of that sorts itself out together. Like you said, there's so many factors. Absolutely.
What's more interesting too is last week, and I know we're going to talk about it a little bit now or at some point. Last week you had mentioned potentially putting uni on Ronin.
Yeah.
Once all this SLP and stone and goo and whatever is being transferred that way, and the Axie community is taking a little cut through Ronin Uniswap,
Yep.
and that's getting transferred into to the Luna holders,
Yep.
that's going to get insane.
Well, and you saw Psych out talking about having some sort of kind of main, uh, I guess, token that kind of they attribute value to. That was an interesting little snippet from Psych out. I'm still kind of noodling on that, trying to figure out how that all
Well,
goes in.
it makes sense if you're taking all these different currencies, and for the people listening, what he's referring to is in chat today. We were talking to Psych Out, one of the team members, and and the question was posed about, will there be a stable token on Ronin, on the chain? And he responded saying, all of these different tokens, we want to make it so that everybody can buy, whether you're paying with ETH, whether you're paying with Bitcoin, whether you're paying with US dollar. The on-ramp has to be seamless for all of these different people, and we don't want the price, crazy fluctuating once you're into the ecosystem.
Right.
So my interpretation of that was that, yeah, you're right. They almost need like a stable currency of Lunacia, that when you're buying into the ecosystem, you're buying the stable currency, and everything else fluctuates around the stable currency, because they can't have SLP fluctuating around ETH, fluctuating around Bitcoin, fluctuating around US dollar. It just makes it too confusing. So if all of this stuff is only, transferred into this stable coin, and then transferred out into whatever that, is at the time, that makes a whole lot more sense, I think.
Yeah, and my only issue with that is like, what is the basis for the stablecoin, right? So if it's this new Luna, that's going to have. To me, it makes sense that the new Luna be the coin that drives the whole thing. I mean, to me, that makes sense. Like new chests, if there's item packs, if there's anything that's offered, tattoos were talked about at one point on some at some point, like Axie tattoos. I think that was Jiho and
Yeah,
Defiant, right?
I,
So,
I was I was talking about that. I don't
oh,
remember
was it
who
you?
started that, but yeah. Well, I kind of added on to it. Like, it would be cool if they had like player designed
Transferable.
skins that they
Yeah.
had to approve, and then you could, like, maybe you had Axies that were modified in some way.
But if all of those are really calculated in terms of the new Luna, um,
Yeah,
then everything else just kind of falls in place around that. The big problem is, I don't know what people are hoping for in a stable coin, because usually stable coins are tied to some sort of fiat. At least that's what I've understood them to be. and then they turn around
Right.
and return some sort of interest based on the performance of the token. I'm not the best tokenomics guy, but the way I look
Yeah,
at it
you know,
is, hey, go ahead.
I'm just thinking about MakerDAO. You know, they've got their U.S. dollar tied stablecoin DAI, but then they also have I don't remember what it's called, but it's it's pegged to a basket or a bucket of different currencies rather than one thing. So you know, maybe that's how it works. Is it's
Yeah,
not necessarily tied to U.S. dollar, but if everything is built around it, um, I don't know. They could have it pegged to SLP, a bucket of SLP and something else so that it doesn't fluctuate as much, if that makes sense.
yeah. Hey, thanks for the follow, Pixel Man. That's awesome. Yeah. So, well, I guess let's move on because I mean, the real issue here is I think we're way in speculation land. Um,
Deep.
way, way, way deep. So let's see if we can get into something that maybe is um, a little bit more clear. Jiho's own words, right? So,
Yeah.
so,
So
yep. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so Stack September didn't give us a whole lot of leaks, you know, directly. But Jiho dropped a lot in this podcast, and we took quite a few snips out of there. For one, we've got some defined timelines, or you know, as close to it as we've ever gotten. And then he made a whole lot of other good points. So I don't know if you want to walk through some of these, and we can kind of discuss them as we go through.
Yeah, so I mean, this first one where he's talking about Axie Infinity isn't just one game, it's a series of game modes built on top of these game assets. So, what's fascinating about that, I think, is, he's kind of referencing what is going to be possible with the SDK, right?
Right, right.
And
Uh,
possibly other third party contributors. But again, I think at this point, we know it's going to have to be on Ronin. Um, Gosh, there was something I wanted to talk about on Ronin, so I'm gonna have to go back. Is that all right?
okay. Yeah,
So
go nuts.
just quickly on Ronin, like, we were talking and we talked about could there be a Uniswap on Ronin, and one of the things he talked about here was specifically, and I can't remember if we have the snippet of that, but that's the idea, like that there would be some sort of exchange on Ronin. And what's crazy about that to me is in a way that almost creates a stable coin type of atmosphere anyway. Because if everything can be exchanged, with kind of the Luna token being the center, because why? Why would the Luna token be the center? Well, he kind of talks about some of this stuff, and maybe I'm shooting ahead. Um, I am, but it's because of governance, right? That's why people are going to want to have the new Luna token because it's going to allow the holders of that token to actually make decisions that are going to have real effect on gameplay and how the token is handled. So that's fascinating to me because if an SDK comes out that people like, well, through the governance token and voting, that a determination as to what one of these side games or mini games or whatever is going to reward uh, Luna is going to be decided by the token itself, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that a lot. The only reason I think it couldn't be Luna is because they say that Luna is gonna be the value driven currency of the space, and if you're driving value to it, it just feels unlikely to me that that would also be the stable coin because they want it to grow. It sounds like rather than be stuck in one place. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But it's also, so what's the governance token then? It's got to be Luna,
Well, Luna's the government's token.
right?
I don't
Anyway,
know.
yeah, it's fascinating to
Anyway,
me. I know that they've thought about this for years, so it's going to turn out. Um,
rubber banding back. You know, the
yep.
other thing I was thinking, I don't know if you watched, but Unity software IPO'd the other day. Um, and one of the big draws of Unity is it's free to build on. So it's got the most, I think, amateur game builders, game developers building games on top of it. And then what happens is when they launch it, depending on the revenue brought in, they take a certain amount of that cut. That just popped into my head. Talking about the SDK and this second little box here.
Yeah.
When Jiho said, I think that definitely we do want to go in that direction over time, where we have other game studios or the community building Axie games with intellectual properties. But how interesting would it be if they kind of did that same thing? Is okay, so you've got your land here. We're going to give you the SDK. You have to charge for people to access this experience a certain amount. And if you guys got to this point, some of this value is going to go back to the community surrounding you via Luna. Um,
And
I
if
don't
I,
know. That could,
again, taking it one step further, my understanding is then the community, through some sort of DAO, decides which one of those SDKs maybe gets to reward participation.
yeah,
So, yeah, it's awesome. So
yeah,
again, and that's this next one. It'll be similar to some of the really nice token models that we've seen come out recently, with kind of a fee sharing, staking to incentivize holding, and gradually these types of governance rights. So, pushing in that direction. Obviously, it's not going to come out that way initially. They're going to need to maintain control and decision making authority until it matures.
yeah. And the interesting thing there for me is the staking to incentivize holding. We've talked about possibilities for staking in this in this world before, but me and you had kind of always speculated that staking is your land. Your land is kind of put. It's off the market while you're playing, so that's kind of staking. But in this way, he's talking directly about Luna in this
Oh yeah,
conversation.
yep.
So, I don't know what that means if you're building something on your land and you need to put a certain amount of Luna aside to have that building there. Um,
Well,
I don't know.
I mean, again, I'm not a master token guy, but I think about it just in terms of economy, right? So, with respect to SLP, why are some people holding SLP? Well, they're holding it because they want to breed, and they're hoping to capitalize on a no fee, low fee type of environment in order to do
Sure.
that breeding. So they're waiting for Ronin, and then it's going to get burnt to some large extent. It's going to be used in some way. So I guess, there's got to be some way to incentivize people to not just sell and be done. I would think. I mean, doesn't that make sense? Like,
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And looking at the price movement today, I was trying to figure out why, one large purchase would move the floor that much on SLP. Um, and that's exactly why. It's because, yeah, there's a large supply, but people are holding it for future purpose, or, you know, people are farming it and they don't have enough to make it make sense to pull it back to their wallet. Um,
yeah, and so
so I,
so
I
for
think that
me,
the
and I
supply
think
is actually a
I
lot
haven't.
smaller than what we're seeing.
Well, for me, so taking it to the next step, I guess for me, I don't think I've made it a secret that I contribute into the liquidity pool, right?
Yeah.
So for SLP, I have a stake in that liquidity pool, and for me, that feels a lot like staking. I mean, you and I have talked about how
And
you're doing uni, right, and other
yep.
things.
And you're right though, is because they had mentioned, I think back with the Ronin Uniswap clone thing, that maybe it's further in the interview, but um, that they would expect that the community would be providing liquidity to that. So that very well could be it.
Right, and I would expect, that I would hope, I guess, that so people can build those neat decorations and structures and whatever it is that, there would be enough liquidity provided by those that are generating it, so it can be purchased, it can be swapped, it can be exchanged,
Right.
on and on and on. So yeah, all right, well, wow,
All right, so we've
speculation
got
like
this new
crazy.
slide up here. We might as well we might as well start talking about it.
Yep.
I had singled this one out for one very specific reason. He's talking back again about Luna. So the token will, you'll be able to earn it, stake it, have a DAO treasury that will basically accumulate things like marketplace commissions, future sales, things that Sky Mavis, the core development team, had in the past and are keeping for themselves currently. The thing that stuck out to me is, I remember a conversation back with Jiho like a year and a half ago where people were asking about the next land sale. Obviously, that's still quite a ways away, but he made some comment about, if we took it all for ourselves, that wouldn't be very decentralized. Don't quote me on that, but it was pretty close to that.
Right.
Um, so what I'm seeing here is it's kind of brought back again. When they say future sales, I'm pretty sure he's talking about the next land sale
Oh
and the
yeah.
one after that and the one after that. So, if you take the amount of Luna you have and divide it by, whatever the available supply is, it seems to me like that percentage of whatever is going on in the land sale is going to be coming back your way in the form of Luna, I would assume.
Gotta be.
Um, I don't know, but that's pretty interesting to me. That's a direct reward based off of you just holding that Luna for a long time.
Well, and to me that makes absolute sense, right? Because we don't want this thing to just be, capitalized and jump out within a few months. At least I don't. That's not my interest in it. My interest is that this thing lasts for 10, 20 years. Like that this is
Right.
a long term sort of game and experience and lifestyle almost. I don't I you know there's it's so fascinating to me where it blends. And in the Defiant interview that was talked about a lot too, like blending the lines between gameplay and real life, and that's certainly happening here.
And I think the next interesting thing too is like we saw with the Uniswap drop. People earned that because they were playing Axie and swapping their SLPs. I mean, obviously not everybody, but a large portion of our players did, and they were actually thanking Jiho and the team for introducing themselves to cryptocurrency because otherwise they wouldn't have earned $1,200 or whatever it
Oh
is
yeah.
now. But they came back and now they've got a chunk of change and they're buying mystics and they're buying land and they're seeing opportunities because now they're excited about it because again this drop was attributed to their playing Axie.
Yep.
So it makes sense to keep investing into the thing that's done well for them. So
Correct.
I kind of see this doing the same thing is all of these players are going to have a little bit of Luna just from playing. When that second land sale drops and sells out, all of these people are going to have a little bit more money in the bank and they're going to reinvest it. Maybe not all of it, certainly, but it's going to get pushed back to the community and keep recirculating, which is just the sign of a good economy.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. Okay, so talked a little bit about um, the in-house marketplace. She was a little bit surprised by the percentage.
Yeah, but I was thinking about this while we were. I don't. Does your next slide talk about that?
Yeah,
The what the actual percentage was.
I think it does.
I saw that and I couldn't care less. I feel like the ETH fees right now, the gas fees are way more than that. I'm way more concerned about gas fees than anything else. They can take their share. I want the company to stay open long enough to finish developing the game.
Yeah.
Like, put food on your table, Jiho. We know you just got married. Like, feed your wife.
Yeah.
Um, but the other piece of that too is okay. So now we're moving to this DAO-based model. We want to slowly move all access to the community. Okay, so now we're at 4.5%. Is that the amount
Yeah,
that they're
4.2. I
currently
think they
charging?
said 4.2.
4.2%. So
Yep.
now again, that's going back to the community. So you buy an Axie, and 4.2% of that is getting shoved back to Luna and eventually hitting your pocket. So um, I don't think that the community cares too much about that sort of thing if it comes back. And in reality too, as we move to this DAO-based system, we have the right to change that. He
Correct.
talks about that at some point where, eventually it'll be a system where somebody submits a proposal, the community votes on it, and it automatically gets acted on,
Yep.
rather than waiting for this long development cycle. So, I personally could care less about that. I'm more excited that we don't even care about 4.2%.
Well, and not only that, like the marketplace provides a space in which you have buyers and sellers that are interested. So, I think that there's some reason that they should be able to charge a little bit higher rate too, because it's kind of putting interested parties together. So,
Sure.
it's a little different. But I know she was kind of surprised where Jiho was saying, "Hey, we're gonna have like Uniswap on Ronin, right? She's like, how are you gonna get people? Well, it's like SOP. Like there may be some still hangers on from the pump and dump that got involved that have nothing to do with Axie. They just saw something that they thought they were going to capitalize on. But for
Yeah.
the most part, I would say the liquidity pool and everything that's being provided there, it's players. It's
Yeah.
people who
It's
want SOP for its
it's
use.
baronar.
Well, it's everybody. Thanks for the follow, Biff Chain. Right on, man. Thanks. So yeah, I mean, so swinging back around, um, and this is just what he was talking about. We're gonna have like a Uniswap style, maybe even Uniswap itself. They've talked to. I don't know for sure, but
Well,
that
I
makes
think I think it's easy enough to fork it. You know, that I think that's public code. It's just sitting on GitHub somewhere, so they can steal it and, you know,
modify.
kind of mold it and yeah, modify it to their needs.
Yep.
Shouldn't be a hard, deployment.
Nope.
Um,
It's more
but
the
guys, this is what I'm
formulas.
talking.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
formulas kind of that drive the rise and fall of prices and swapping. Yeah.
right. But guys, this is what I'm talking about. Like, yeah, we don't have a stack September. We've got a little out of the loop October. But Gio dropped a lot of kind of confirmations in this interview, that we really didn't have this information before. So I'm still very excited about all this.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I can't remember if I pulled this one or if I pulled it over, but I mean, he did say that basically land alpha within the next kind of 2 months, 80% certainty, and I don't think I pulled that one, but that he said that very specifically, very clearly that
Yeah,
he's thinking 80% certainty that we'll have something within the next 2 months as far as land
yeah.
alpha.
The interesting thing to me was, okay, so he definitely did put a few specific timelines out there that again we really haven't seen in a while. Um, but you know, specified that the current card game is currently in alpha. Like we're playing an alpha version. It feels super polished and it feels
Yeah,
good, and
it
they're
does.
they're actively maintaining it. And sorry, Indus, but bugs are getting fixed, and balances are being made occasionally. Um, but we're currently in alpha. So when they say that a land beta or alpha is out in the next couple months, that's why they're pushing things back, because they
Yeah.
want to have a solid product released.
I
Um,
feel like that's the case. I feel like there's probably several components that go into um, them acknowledging, like, also it's the 22nd of September, so like 8 days before it's even the end of the month, basically they're telling us, hey, let's not get your expectations too high. We're gonna push, and that's pretty awesome too, because they could have tried to get it done right within the next week ish.
yeah, I'm sure if they wanted to, they could show us something. But I almost feel like if they're that close, like if they were far, they would show us some gameplay or something like that. They'd give us a video.
Yeah,
If they
like
were
May.
close, if they were close, I don't. I think that they would just push it back a few weeks and be like, "Listen, guys, we're actually right about there.
Yeah,
Like you
that
guys are gonna be excited." And that's
I
exactly
agree.
what he said.
Yep, I agree. I completely agree. Okay, and then just I guess an opportunity to talk about just how many people are asking about this. I don't know for sure who Jiho's talking about here, but I mean, it sounds like something's in the works, maybe. Like that there's big people asking about NFTs, and that there's maybe going to be some huge headline style purchase or something, um, with a big crypto fund becoming involved. Uh, it makes me a little wary for all you Genesis holders out there. Stay strong.
Yeah, you know, we've seen kind of venture capital trickle into the crypto space in general slowly over time. I mean, Bitcoin was created in 2009, and those venture capital firms really didn't start hitting until like 2014. So 5 years later, NFTs have really only been around for 2 or 3 years now. So the fact that they're already kind of asking and looking to get involved, and this isn't even something that like a traditional valuation makes sense for. You can't
Yeah.
just put this in a spreadsheet and see how the numbers play out. They have to be looking at this from a, again, you've got to look at the overall token economics, and that's got to be what they're looking at. If
Yeah.
you owning land brings you money, that's what a hedge fund would be looking at
Yeah, and if they can hire players or whatever in order
to
to
manage that
capital,
land.
right? I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean, somebody like Small Brown Doge comes in and makes giant waves in the markets, right? Imagine if, one of these larger hedge fund style, crypto fund style entities decided to come in and start dropping some real crypto.
yeah. I won't speculate a whole lot on that, but it just shows that people are starting to treat um, maybe virtual worlds similar to how they treat the real world. They're looking at opportunities the same sort of way. Land is land, ownership is ownership. If you can make money, you can make money. So they're exploring those options. But
Yeah.
him saying that we're going to see headlines means that the conversations that they've been having,
Yeah.
and again, just speculation because I'm obviously not in that room.
Yeah.
But
Right.
but you don't speculate on that in your interview if people aren't super excited about that in those conversations.
Oh, I completely agree. And again, it comes back to a couple people in Discord have been asking about, should I wait for chess? Should I get into land? And
Oh, buy
again,
now.
I mean, again, not financial advice, right? Like you make
Financial
this,
advice, buy now.
make decisions that make sense for you. But we don't know when chests are going to happen. We don't know what's going
Right.
to be included with chests or how they're going to deploy it the next time. We don't know if the DAO is going to be in place to govern how that takes place at the time.
Well, they've said specifically that chess won't be out until till land is released. I don't see them doing that in beta or alpha. I see them doing that in the full release.
Yep.
And he specified in this interview that the full release is about half a year or so. So 6 months from now, we're talking March. Maybe Q2 2021 is when we're looking at the next land sale.
Yep.
If you want to be involved, if you want to be accruing Luna during that time, which, as we've kind of said, seems to be the way to go. Um, you're literally making your money back if you're
Yeah.
able to play over the next 6 months,
And again, like I
just
look at,
by
yep.
accruing some Luna
I,
and waiting for that land sale because you're going to get a chunk of it.
Right. So to me, again, it goes back to you get your Axie team of three, and then you're just kind of looking at how soon can you get your money back in just earning through play, given that proof of effort that you've got to get in order to get that token. And then, I
Right.
mean, there's very few investments that you can get a return of 100% of your investment as quickly as you can, even now in SLP in Axie. And
Yeah, and I think he specified he did the math in that article, and he was guesstimating about 7 to 8 hours of playing. You're making your money back from your first team. That's like me going out and buying a lawnmower and mowing lawns for a whole day and paying it off. Like that's a
that's
pretty
crazy.
good deal, and
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm not sweating out in the sun.
Right, exactly. So I think we're going to actually skip this part. We can hold off and see what's happening. But just in general, the Axie marketplace, the floors have just moved like crazy. Nothing's below chest anymore. Everything's
No,
at least 10% above. It keeps kind of fluctuating depending on who is wanting some ETH at the time, who's ready to kind of make deals. Some like Danny, he pulled. I pay really close attention to the floor and where everything's at, and particular spots that I like. And I noticed Danny, he pulled everything, then relisted a bunch. So he's still willing to sell, but he's not willing to sell at 5% over chest. Now he's willing to sell at 20% over chest. So,
right.
you know,
Yeah. Real quick before we move on, the last thing I wanted to say just about timelines that Geo dropped, right? So we've got land, public beta, public alpha potentially out in the next couple months. So before Christmas, it seems like, full release out in 6 months. Um, and then he also said, and this is something that me and you thought would come out a lot sooner. We were expecting this like this month because of how important it is with the onboarding. But Ronan, he said 70% sure that we'll see it by Q1 2021. So again, goal is to have it by end of the year. But Q1 leaves him three months for, room for error. So
Yeah.
um, very potentially, again, it's certainly not this month, and it seems like we'll see land before we see Ronan, which I was very surprised to see.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember, but I asked Trung about that too. Maybe it was Jiho. I can't remember. I kind of was asking like, is Ronan required um, for land to be released? And they said no, which makes sense because you can accumulate all these other pieces of tokens and tokens themselves off chain the way they have it set up until you sync it.
Yeah,
Okay, so Axie answers. We did have a few. We did have a few
got a ring
questions.
to it.
Yeah.
We got a new
Um,
segment, everybody.
so we already kind of talked about this a little bit, so we won't get into too much detail. But this was just again a reminder about that we're in alpha battles, right? Enjoy.
Yeah, so this came about for whatever reason. I'm an insane person. I went through back like all the main releases that they made over the course of the year, um, and I came across this comment about version. Well, it's not even about version two. This is before they were even discussing version two. Um, but some of the things that they were focusing on with current gameplay. And okay, so we've got a few different things. These are the main issues that we've come across. Gameplay pacing being too slow. The parallel turn system adds a lot of unnecessary mental math and calculations in mastering the game. So they're talking about like, okay, I go, you go, I go, I go, you go, based on speed, right? A few unintuitive mechanics and UI issues. Energy steal, limiting creativity and strategy. Hoarding cards and energy leads to many no move turns and cards with very little usage. So again, I was kind of going through this and stumbled upon this piece. Everybody's been speculating on what Battles version 2 is going to look like.
Yeah.
I'm almost wondering if it's going to be more of the Pokemon style back and forth, like I act then you act, rather than
Right.
that
Right.
whole
Right.
energy thing.
Right.
Um, Again, just speculation, but that almost seems to cover a lot of these things, right? Because it speeds up the gameplay because you're not focused on, okay, they've got some people that are a little bit faster than me. Am I going to play the cards this turn because they're going to kill me before I get to play the cards? Like
Yeah.
I think you're making your decisions after you've already been attacked, what you're going to do next,
Yeah.
which speeds up a lot of things. It fixes some of those unintuitive mechanics. Energy Steel, see, I like Energy Steel, um, and I don't even think that limits creativity necessarily. But you'd almost have to talk to an Indus to see what he thinks about that, because I think there's a lot of interesting things they could do with Energy Steel. Or maybe I'm taking Energy Steel as energy in general. Um,
Well, the
but
one thing
yeah,
I notice, and I've brought this up in battle balancing and other places, is with energy steal. The second I see somebody with Sirius or Rice or something that I or Gouda, immediately I'm thinking I got to play everything or I'm going to get hosed. And same with card still. Those are just big main chain. I call it main chain, like high level portions of play that have massive effect on how that battle is going to turn out. So
yeah,
it's not like just down in the resolution. It's primary functionality of the game issue. So I don't know if you've played Dominion or anything like that. Um, it has enough. Yeah. So like in Dominion, you build your own card deck, right? And then you
yep,
play each other after you've built your card deck of all of the different cards that you've decided that you're going to have be part of that game. But it's akin to like completely eliminating one of those piles of cards that you could choose from, in my
gotcha.
view. So like it has this high level effect on the game that gets me a little bit concerned of what that's going to
Interesting.
do. So
Well, I
that's been
see
my
Indus in the chat also says that Energy Steel's been addressed since this came out. So it's very
yeah.
possible, it was in a bad place and they've already fixed that
So
piece of it.
adding that it has to be played in a combo, for example. That's one of
Right.
the main ways that they've addressed that. So anyway, all
Makes
right. Well,
sense.
we can
Yeah.
move on.
All right.
Was there more you wanted to say on this one, or?
No, I think just, again, it gives us a little bit of potential insight, digging back to what they've said in the past, which not a lot of people have done. We're kind of always going off of what the current information is, but this, maybe gives you a little bit of vision into what may come.
Right, right. Makes sense. Okay, and so a few different things that we got. I guess we can just start and tell Rise Monkey thanks, man. Thanks for hanging out. So, do you want to talk about specific land plots and what you think, or what? How did you want to address this one?
Dude, I don't even know. It's a tough question because again, it's kind of we don't have the info. So for everybody listening at home, he asks, you talk about land a lot, which is totally understandable. Could you discuss the value proposition, if any, of corner plots? I'm interested to know if you think it's worth picking them up, or paying up for them. And then he kind of adds on also river plots. So yeah, I can jump in first. I like corner plots for the sake of for a couple reasons. One, it's right next to road, which we know helps you move a little bit faster. And if you're building, let's say a marketplace or something like that on your plot, you want it to be visible from where there's the most traffic. You want people to be stopping by. So that's kind of
Visibility.
my yeah, it's all about visibility. It's all about, again, part of this is an economic game. You want to make money, right?
Right,
So
and
having more people.
we saw some land kind of stuff recently that looks like stands, like there are things for sale, like the potion stand, you know.
Right.
Maybe if that's on a corner plot with more traffic coming by, you get more
Sure.
customers.
And then you're getting the cross traffic too. It's not just the one way. The other piece too is you're, because you move faster on roads, you've got access to getting further both directions as well. Both parallel and, up and
Longitude.
down,
Yep.
left and right. Yeah. Um, so again, I personally look at it more as I want this for visibility for whatever I decide to build there. Um, as far as river plots goes, yeah, we don't have a lot of information. After you sent this in, I was thinking about it a little bit more. People have talked about the possibility of fishing on the river, which makes sense. We've also seen in some of the early art, though, that one of the things you might be able to build on your land is a pond. There's an image of a pond with a little dock on there. So when they say fishing, that might be what they're talking about too. I'm not sure if that's for river or that's something that you can build. Um, the other piece that too is it may just be a way to break up the map so that people have to go through certain areas. Um,
Yeah.
my thinking about that though is if that was the case, if they were using that as their break of a certain amount of space, there would be river all the way around the edge of the map rather than the kind of cliff drop off that's
Yeah.
there currently. So I'm
The
I'm not sure
barrier or
that
whatever it is. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure that's I don't know. I'm not sure that that's all there is to it.
I think that I don't know. I guess maybe this is kind of guessing too, but my kind of memory, my at least impression is that there's public resource nodes and that rivers have basically been included in that. Like roads are kind of seem to be for travel. I don't know if you remember in one of mine, I kind of pointed out that I saw, and who knows what's I kind of saw a little clip of a road in one of them, which was interesting that a lot of that stuff didn't really have roads clearly shown.
Hmm.
Like it kind of had these paths in between the different plots, but not necessarily roads. But it looked
Right.
like there was some, bushes or something like a hedge almost. I don't know. I couldn't tell for sure, but I really analyzed the crap out of that, trying to figure out what I could figure out. So again, it seems like river is some form of public resource, and with shells, it makes sense that there would be something there. I think I read somewhere on Discord where people were talking about how there was some tool that showed how the different parts have basically the different resources included in a lot of them. You think about like wooden stab, you think about clamshell, you think about some of those things, and it's interesting because if that relates specifically to upgrading Axie parts, that would make sense too.
Yeah, I just think that if it did nothing, they would have had it around the outside of the map, so they didn't have to worry about that edge. Um,
Yep.
the fact that there's just so few pieces of land that actually touch river makes me feel like they would want to do something with it. The other side of this is I'm pretty sure they read the chat in Discord all the time. I'm pretty sure they, maybe listen in on this podcast occasionally. Um, I really think that if you want to see something and you make it known and they think it's a good idea, it's possible it pops up
Oh
because,
yeah.
again, they're just making this stuff up too as they go along. And if they hear a really good idea, I don't, it
Well,
makes
yeah,
sense that
man.
they'd add it.
I'm thinking if rivers and if we get ponds, if we get streams, our own streams and ponds that we can like build, like I'm pretty sure there's going to be Lake Baronar somewhere, man. I'm excited. And I
I
was
want to
thinking
put a
about that
boat in
too.
it.
Like, if there's a resource like that, and if maybe rare drops increase based on how many connected, like water areas that you build on your lands or with in conjunction with other people, and then all of a sudden, like the bigger your lake is, the more likely it is that you can get rarer drops. Like, man, what does that do too? I mean, anyway, I think about lots of things like that, like
Can,
farms too.
can I
Like,
put out the can I put out the craziest, stupidest
yeah,
speculation
of
yet?
course.
So as I was thinking about how rivers don't go around the outside border, I was thinking, what if rivers are like travel, like the roads? What if, for one person to walk all the way across the map, they've said that that could take multiple days in real life to potentially a week plus.
Yeah.
Um, what if you drop in a boat on the left-hand side and there's a current in the river, it just pulls you around wicked fast, and now you're on the other side of the map.
That's
I don't
awesome.
know. Never thought about that before, but
Well, and wormholes and stuff like that too. Like,
right.
you know, shortcuts in travel. Where do resources get stored? How, there's so many things, and we have lots of things we can talk about in the future too. So
Yeah. Now that my mind's spinning, I got a bunch of things to add, but
that's
we'll
awesome.
we'll we'll
Hang
wait
on
on
to 'em.
that.
Yeah. So Ouchie kind of talked about maybe having some sort of synergies from holding different types of assets. I love that idea. I mean, I think that's super cool. I do feel like if you own a full set of plushies, that's pretty awesome. Maybe there should be some sort of synergy that's created from doing that. Same with the statues. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there's already some synergies built in, right? Teams teams of three axes get built because of synergies in the arena. You put certain things on your land, it modifies the synergies that you've already got, makes them stronger. Um, but if you've got an axis that's already strong, and you put on something that gives them maybe more morale, they're more likely to crit. Like, I don't know. Things are going to get crazy once you start adding items to the mix. A lot
yeah,
of it's only 15% added chance, or
ten
none of
percent.
it seems like a lot, but once you stack a few things on top of it,
Potato
like,
Wars.
exactly, yeah, beasts are just going to be critting all the time, and they're going to be fast. Like,
Oh yeah.
I know that doesn't directly answer his question, but that's kind of what I've been thinking about.
No, and I tend to agree. And lately, initially, I was acquiring land items basically just to have them, but lately, I've been acquiring land items that I think are going to have significant benefit in play.
Right.
HP buffs for plants and reptiles, HP buffs across all axes, attack bonuses, all those ones that seem to have significant utility, um, that I can see kind of making a significant difference. So yeah, I'm kind of switching phases in acquisition myself.
Well, and that's what I'm talking about. Now your bird has 500 HP instead of 340. Like, I don't want to go against a bird with tank HP. Like, it's gonna get weird. And
Yeah,
man, imagine if those augmentations affect PvP too. Like, how crazy are the the next, like, big waxy smackathon gonna be?
yeah, right.
Like, how much will that change the meta?
Absolutely. All right, are we ready? Here we
Ready to call it
go.
quits, or do you have more slides?
No, I've got a couple more slides. We haven't even got
Oh my God.
to the real leak.
We didn't even answer his question about the Z pattern plots.
Oh, should we
Real
go
quick
back?
before we jump, yeah, no leak city. Everybody forget you saw this. The four connected slots. Uh, they've said Z pattern I think is a no go. It's got to be in a square rectangle foundation. So who knows if you could have four that are literally just across in a line. Um, but right now I'm going off. It's got to be 2x2 or 2x3 at the very least.
Yeah, and so on that again, I'd love to know where you're pulling that because I haven't found that yet, but it's probably in Discord because you're good at mining Discord. But my thoughts on that are it depends on what we're talking about. So, for example, if it's a river, it doesn't really have to it doesn't really have to follow that square four. And I know, and I've said this in my own streams, like that it looks like the only thing that we've seen that's for sure 2x2 are the pawns that are in that concept art, right? Um, but like buildings, it makes sense that it's pretty hard to have them in a Z shape.
Right, right.
But a farm, you can plant farms according to the contours of the land fairly well. So again, if there's some synergy for having multiple water plots that you're building, it also initially it looks like you can build your own roads. So I don't know exactly how that's going to be implemented if that's still part of the design. Um, so I would say like I think there's going to be synergies in connected plots regardless of the size. But if you're thinking
Right.
you're going to try to build some, you know, bigger building structure, and it's not going to fit geometrically, probably unlikely, right?
Yeah, well, so I'll boil that down to 2 points. Is one, I'm almost confident, 98% that it's got to be in a square rectangle shape to build stuff on. That being said, I know that they've also said that if you have connected plots, you can manage it all together. So that works towards your farming
Oh yeah.
idea there.
So yeah, the connected plot benefit I think is I mean we don't know. It's all speculation, but I think that it's big. I think that there's a whole huge conversation that hasn't even been talked about. I think people are thinking about it, maybe subconsciously, but it hasn't been discussed directly. We know that these land plots are going to generate resources. We know that it's going to, and the owner is going to have first crack at getting those resources. But what about all these public resources, and how are those going to be accessed, and how is that going to look? Where do you go with those? Do you have to go somewhere with those? The initial idea was teleport to where you want to go to do your chimera battle, to gather your public resources that are really important. Is it where are the dungeons going to be? Is it only going to be in the bigger public resource nodes? Are the smaller 2x2 public resources unlikely to have dungeons? Or how is all that going to come about? And
Yeah.
I mean, I've kind of hinted it to you, like, are we going to be spending our time just farming our own crops, or are we really going hunting? I'll just leave it at that.
I'm going hunting.
Hell yeah. So
All right,
Leak City,
so leak
baby.
time. Oh my God, go ahead. You
The,
you lead this one.
so so who is this guy? Like, do we know? Like, does he have a name or anything? Because he's
I don't.
around.
I think he's baronar.
Oh yeah. All right. So check it out, guys. Here we go. Drum roll. Brrr, do the Michael Scott.
So the background for people who weren't around here last week,
It's Jeff.
and this is so stupid. Nobody's going to actually be excited about this, but we saw this guy on the left here, in I think the May land development update. We saw the guy on the right when they launched the Mavis hub. It seems to be the same guy. He's got the same horn, same color body. You can see that there's an evolution on the left-hand side where he's got kind of legs, arms, and on the right-hand side where he's got this mecha suit. Who knows what's going on inside of there?
Yeah.
But as Baronar had mentioned last week, when I was digging through the gameplay files, I pulled everything out of the game, all the artwork, and came across this,
Here
which
we go.
he thought was cooler than I did.
I think it's amazing. Look at that,
Oh my God.
dude. I think that is so
Stupidest
awesome.
drum roll ever. So they built this into the game, and I haven't seen it yet. I think that either this was lost in translation somewhere, somebody threw this in as a leak. I don't know, but this was in here way before those previous leaks. So, um, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of cool to see that one. He's standing up, he's got arms. So I was excited about this before they leaked those other things. He's also got a backpack.
Yep.
Um, again,
He's
just
wearing a bracer, man. There's
he's
so
got a
many.
bracer.
Yep.
Yeah,
In my view, there's so many things that are so cool about this. For me, it's that the creative team, the art team, has specifically um, did this concept art. I assume before they actually turned it into an isometric axie, which is where that leak
yeah.
came from. So they've been thinking about this for a while now, and I think that this is gigantic. You think about it, he looks like he's a fuzzy, right? I mean, that's my guess. Fuzzy body.
Uh, yeah, I would. I didn't think about it, but it makes sense. Sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, you take this and then you think about your axes, you think about what you have. And then for me, it's like, okay, so how is that going to change my guy? Like, what does it turn into when it does this level of evolution, when it grows up? Anyway, I love it. I think it's huge. And at least
Now
there's
I'm like picturing.
one leak, right? At least there's a leak.
Now I'm picturing though, because I didn't even think about the whole fuzzy aspect. Like, if you have a normal Axie, non-fuzzy, like, is he just basically naked under there? Like, it just feels like seeing a guy that you've known your whole life with a beard all of a sudden shave it all
Shit.
off. Like, that's gonna be weird for me.
Anyway, yeah. So there we go. Thanks for hanging out, everybody, and sticking with us. Size September, and we're open for October. How's that?
Hoping for October. I like it, man. Yeah, here's is our next show. I think it's right before October, so
Yeah.
maybe not the next one, but the next one we'll have some actual leaks. We'll try and dig some more up for you next week. But um, yeah, thanks for joining us. I'll have the podcast live probably everywhere that podcasts are served tomorrow at noon. Um, but yeah, keep the questions coming. We like the noodling our brains on those.
Absolutely. And thanks a lot, Enjoy. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. Thanks for supporting this stream and the chat, the podcast. And we're gonna keep on keeping on as long as people are enjoying it and having a good time. And I certainly am. So thanks again for hanging out with us. And uh, again, in the lack of leaks, hanging out and at least talking Axie. So we appreciate you.
Man, we're a month deep and many months to go. Looking forward to it, guys.
Heck yeah. Right on.
Take
All
care.
right. See you guys. Peace out.